Good evening, everyone. Namaste.
Congressional members, members of the U.S. Senate, to grab that attention and turn that attention into action. Jay and his team's presence in D.C. constantly on the Hill, working those relationships, deepening those relationships, so that Jay can pick up the phone as he does and call a member of Congress or call their senior staff and say, this is an issue that's coming up that requires action. He's persistent, and he needs to be, because there's so much happening there. But I want you to know that the Hindu American Foundation, your support and the resources that you give to people like Jay and Murli, who we heard from before, this is real, and the results are tangible, and we see them on a daily basis through the work we're doing in Washington. So let's give Jay a round of applause. Growing up as a kid in Hawaii, I'm the fourth of 5 kids. I have 3 older brothers and a younger sister. Hawaii is a very diverse place, melting pot of different cultures. As an example, in our federal delegation to the Congress now, currently we have 2 Buddhists, a Hindu, and a Jew. Very different from many other states in the country. So I feel fortunate to have grown up in a place that celebrated diversity, possibly greater than communities that many of you have lived in or spent time in. And growing up, being able to take my japa mala and to be able to chant and to be able to practice the principles that I had been taught since I was a kid was something that was normal for me, but looking back, especially in seeing the hardship that others face in other places, that I'm grateful for. Really the two practices of yoga that our parents taught us from the time when I was very young, and that I continue to do my best to practice, is the practice of karma yoga and bhakti yoga. Dedicating our actions and our lives in the loving service of God. And through that, in doing that, dedicating those actions in a way that have a positive impact and serve other people. The way that this became more than just a teaching, more than just kind of a theory or a spiritual ritual, was the importance that our parents placed on us to put these principles into action in our own way, even as kids. That this isn't something that you have to wait until you're older and important and have some stature in society to be able to actually put into practice. Doing small and simple things as kids in grade school, as teenagers, impacting our community around us, and understanding that whether it's taking action on environmental issues or in education or in different medicine, in different parts of our community, it's that motivation of where that comes from that is rooted in these spiritual practices in Hinduism.
I just want to add that Congresswoman Gabbard's door is always open to the Hindu American community. So I want to thank her for that. Congresswoman Gabbard, or Tulsi, you have a proven record of public service, beginning with elected office at the young age of 21 for the Hawaii State Legislature, and then after that she joined the Hawaii National Guard. And the audience should note that the Congresswoman is just returning from a tour of duty with the Hawaii National Guard because to protect Hawaii's citizens from a natural disaster. A volcano erupted on the Big Island, and they had to secure the perimeter to ensure that the lava didn't destroy property, and more importantly, she was saving lives. So let's give her a great round of applause. And Congresswoman Gabbard is battling being under the weather, but she committed to coming here, and it shows her commitment to the Hindu American community. So, Congresswoman Gabbard, what philosophies and what tenets of Hinduism continue to inspire you during your tours of duty in Iraq and Kuwait, and now as you're a member in the highest legislative body in the U.S.?
The teachings of the Bhagavad Gita continue to serve as an inspiration and really a place of shelter, a place where I can find comfort and wisdom and courage at different times of my life. Recently, I had the opportunity to meet with Prime Minister Modi in New York when he was there, as well as in Washington, D.C. And as I was preparing to meet with him, I was thinking, what kind of gift do you give to a leader of a country? I'm sure he receives all kinds of gifts from all kinds of people and very nice things. All of which I didn't feel capable of giving, but I wanted to give him something that was meaningful to me and hope that he received it in the same manner. So I gave him my personal copy of the Gita that my parents gave me when I was 4 or 5 years old, the copy of the Gita that I kept with me through both of my deployments to the Middle East, that I would crawl under my sleeping bag and my cot in a tent in Iraq and shine my flashlight and read it late at night when I was done with my day. And it's the copy of the Gita that I took the oath of office on as a new member of Congress just over 2 years ago. It's funny because I was looking through it before I gave it to him and saw some little scribbles I had put in there. I think I was 7 or 8 years old, and I signed my name, Tulsi Gabbard, and I put in a box, I heart Krishna. So, through times of sadness and uncertainty and fear and joy and happiness and victory, the teachings, Krishna's teachings to Arjuna and the Gita have been a place that I've always gone back to, constantly. It's a place where, regardless of what we're facing in our lives, each of us coming with different experiences, different stories, different backgrounds, different challenges that we face ahead of us. The teachings there are timeless and apply to each of us in our own unique ways. And those teachings and those principles are a place that I continue to go to myself, but also to share with others in my efforts to share with them and answer their questions about Hinduism, about how these teachings are not limited to a so-called sect or religion, but these are teachings that apply to all of us, regardless of our own spiritual practice or our own spiritual faith, or the name that we call God by, and really highlights our ability to remove the divisions that are often the cause of such great conflict, suffering, and even death around the world. If we all focused on these teachings, which are true and central to every major religious practice in the world, then we have the opportunity to effect real change.
That's a great segue into my next question, is that in an era when religious extremism is on the rise abroad and partisan divide seems to be the norm here at home, what lessons can we draw from Hinduism for cooperation, mutual understanding, and quite frankly, just to keep a person sanity?
Well, I think the unfortunate challenge and conflict that we see around the world happening, that we see here at home, happening within Congress, that we see happening within different communities in our own country and in other countries around the world. These deep challenges, I think we should all see as opportunities, where we can see opportunities for organizations like the Hindu American Foundation to share these, the gift that India has given to the world in the principles of Hinduism. Again, as I was saying, that can and should be applied by people. The true practice of yoga, for example. And this is something that applies not only in a political sense, not only in the very direct conflict that we see happening in the Middle East, for example, where we see extremism at its worst, but also within our own communities and some of the social challenges that we have here. One of the things that I spoke to Prime Minister Modi about, which the Hindu American Foundation has been an active leader and participant on, is his establishment his efforts to establish an International Yoga Day, and how the true practice of yoga, not just the physical exercise, but bringing about real understanding to people everywhere about the true meaning of yoga and how we can apply these principles in our own lives, can help to reduce stress in the workplace, can help to reduce teenage suicide, can help people to understand their own true identity and to be able to bring about real focus and real true purpose in their lives, and therefore true reward and happiness. What I see, unfortunately, far too often within our own country and within people in positions of influence and leadership around the world are decisions or messages or policies that are motivated by fear, that are motivated out of insecurity for themselves. And it's not just people in positions of influence. I think when we look in our own lives, we can see times where we have made decisions, maybe based out of fear, rather than love, rather than a positive vision, rather than compassion. And again, there are unbelievable and inspiring teachings within the Hindu spiritual practice that can help to remove that division, that can help to inspire these decisions being made out of love and taking that fear away. And I want to share a verse with you from the Gita that I turn to all the time as a great reminder for myself, from chapter 18, verse 66, where Krishna tells Arjuna, "Abandon all varieties of religion and just surrender unto me. I shall deliver you from all sinful reactions. Do not fear." Those words, "do not fear," when we think in our own lives about the things we become afraid of, about not having enough money or not having a good enough job, or what will other people think about me, or what will happen if I do this versus that. When we can take away that fear, imagine the possibilities that become open, because then you're not thinking about yourself anymore. Then you're thinking about, well, if I take this action, how can I help this person or this group of people or my family or my community or our country or the world? And you can think about those opportunities in a whole new way that takes away the limitations that fear that places upon us.
And so one of the things that the Hindu American Foundation does is we have for 11 years published a human rights report on the plight of Hindus who live in countries such as Pakistan, Bangladesh, Malaysia, the Indian state of Jammu and Kashmir, and even Bhutan. And these people live in fear. They don't have the same religious freedoms that we have here in the United States. And because the Hindu American Foundation has published this report, I can tell you that members of Congress now are aware of these issues that they may not have been. And I must say, we have truly found a champion in the cause of promoting the human rights of Hindus and religious minorities in these countries in Tulsi Gabbard here, because I have witnessed through her direct advocacy that she brings up these topics in congressional hearings and briefings on the House floor, and she's not afraid to do that. But Congresswoman Gabbard, on Capitol Hill, what is the greatest challenge that you face trying to engage other members of Congress on how to address Hindu human rights issues?
I think one of the biggest challenges is a lack of information and a lack of having members of Congress who are truly informed about the realities that people in these other countries, but also people here, are facing. I think you have a lot of people there who have good intentions. They may not know much about Hinduism, they may not know much about the human rights atrocities that are occurring to Hindus and others around the world, and where things like this human rights report are so powerful. When HAF comes and does their DC days, bringing people who are telling their personal stories of what has happened to their family in Bangladesh, for example, and others, these are very powerful tools to help inform members of Congress and their staff to then be able to turn them into informed advocates. I think the more we gather strong voices speaking to the plight of these people, it helps to encourage those who are in these positions that they are being heard, and that their stories are becoming known, and that can become very empowering for real action to occur to start to change those situations.
I want to say Congresswoman Gabbard really works across the aisle here. She actually partnered with a Republican member of Congress from Illinois to write a letter to Secretary Kerry on the plight of Bangladeshi Hindus, and it was a success because we got a response from Secretary John Kerry, and that he will work on this issue through the Embassy of the United States in Pakistan. So these are real results that we can see. These are your support dollars going towards advocacy that achieves tangible goals. And
just to add on to that, I think that's where you should know that the work that Jay does, the work that I try to do, when I talk about divisiveness and talk about the frustrations that I know many people have in Congress, the issues that HAF brings to light and the challenges that they take on are issues that achieve bipartisan support, that have members from both parties, leaders from different committees standing up and finding that rare common ground that you almost never hear about in the news. You turn on the CNN, all you hear about are Democrats and Republicans fighting against each other and who won this or who lost that. But these are the issues that are rare but are so important that you have leaders from both parties standing up, and as they become informed, becoming stronger voices on affecting change.
Let's go back to foreign policy and to Prime Minister Narendra Modi. So a few months before the Indian election, Hinduism and India's pluralistic ethos were really coming under attack by, let's just say, elements and lobbying organizations that don't necessarily have India or Hinduism's best interests in mind. And the Hindu American Foundation was really working hard to set the record straight. And Congresswoman Gabbard again came to the rescue, using her authority as a member of Congress to bring out these issues. What was your experience on Capitol Hill as one of the only members who took a firm stand against legislation and hearings that were attempting to influence India's elections through the pulpit of the US Congress?
You know, this does go back to fears that people have of going against the flow or going against the grain of what's seen or perceived as so-called normal. When I learned of the USERF hearing that was going to take place, or the witnesses who were going to come before Congress, and the resolution that was proposed really to have a very inappropriate and non-fact-based influence in the weeks leading up to the election, the great election that was held in India. I worked with the Hindu American Foundation and others to gather the information that I needed to be able to go to this committee, which I'm a member of, and be that lone dissenting voice. I will tell you, in that room, and Jay was there weren't a lot of friendly faces in the crowd. There were not other members of Congress or members of USERF who were there who were nodding their heads or agreeing with what I was saying. It was not the popular position in the room, but I knew it was the right position. It was the voice that needed to be heard, and that the media needed to carry, to have that balance there to the misinformation that was being brought up and the misperceptions that were being furthered about India and about Prime Minister Modi. And, you know, my taking that 5 minutes out of my day to go there and speak on this was a very small thing when you look at the impact that it had in making sure that the media, the news stories, and that the community as a whole saw that there was balance there. And that's really the power, not only that I have this great opportunity, which I try to maximize with the platform of being a member of Congress, to talk about these kinds of issues. But each of us here in the room, we each have this power ourselves within our own sphere of influence. And when you have so many people talking about and bringing these issues to light, you know, it's collectively raising the volume that ends up having reverberating positive impact and empowers other people to do the same.
Well, on the topic of India, the Hindu American Foundation, did play a central role in planning the Prime Minister's visit here in New York City, and we actually were able to get, in addition to Tulsi, another 32 members of Congress to join him on stage, as well as Governor Nikki Haley of South Carolina, who just visited India and reaffirmed her commitment to strengthening her Indian roots. And so with that, I want to ask you, it's fairly common knowledge that you actually have never had the opportunity to visit India. So in the near future, is that going to happen, and will you be able to visit her spiritual sites and the spiritual homeland of Hinduism?
Yes. It's one of a lot of people, and I feel honored by this, but they mistakenly think that I come from Indian heritage. I don't. And I've never been to India yet. I've never had the honor of visiting India. I have been looking forward to going and trying to find the time to go. The Prime Minister personally invited me to go and said he would help plan my trip whenever I decided to go. So at that point I knew there's absolutely no excuse. So I booked the dates. I'll be going later next month, and looking forward to conducting some business, seeing how we can further explore the great potential that exists with the India-US relationship, seeing how we can strengthen this partnership and friendship with many, many mutual agreed upon goals, but also be taking some time off to spend some personal time visiting some of the holy places there that I've heard and learned and read so much about. So I'm looking forward to it.
Goes to show the universality of Hinduism, that someone who's never been to India, is not of Indian origin, like many of us in the room are, practices Hinduism so deeply and so truly, and she's one of the most successful people of our community. So I think that deserves another round of applause. That is probably the most inspiring thing that we should take from this. So,
I'll disagree with the most successful remark, but I will say that I have been grateful to have found a unique way to connect with people, I think, who are not of Indian origin, to share my own, the deep reward and happiness and meaning to my life that I have found in my own spiritual practices. It has allowed me to create many bridges of understanding and respect, and even agreement with those maybe who didn't feel that possibility of connection before.
So when you decided that you were going to take, and by the way, I'm taking questions from the audience now that have been submitted. What was the reaction of your colleagues on the Hill when you were going to take oath on the Gita? Because that seemed to be a pretty bold move, and did anyone advise you against that?
I really wasn't sure what the reception would be like. The only precedence that I saw was when Congressman Keith Ellison took his oath of office on the Quran a few years earlier, and got quite a bit of criticism for it. I was running in an election against an opponent who had said openly that that Hindus have no place serving the United States Congress. So I was prepared for the extent of responses. I hoped that they would be positive, but was ready for whatever came my way. But was really happy, actually, when I started to see, with CNN and some of the media who started to pick up stories and conducted interviews and were actually very positive in their response and asking intelligent questions about the Bhagavad Gita and my plans to take the oath of office. And I had nothing but positive responses from my colleagues then, both in the House as well as the Senate, on taking the oath of office on the Gita. It raised some eyebrows, without a doubt. It was different, but I had received and still receive nothing but support. And really, people are interested. They want to learn more, and it comes from a sincere place within their hearts. And this is coming from members of Congress who represent liberal districts, liberal Democratic districts, to some of the most conservative Republican districts in the South. I've seen nothing but warmth and interest and sincere questions. Someone here reminded me about a story I had shared before. I have a picture of baby Krishna on my phone as my wallpaper, and I was in a meeting with a senior Democrat member of the Senate, and I pulled out my phone and was pulling something out, and she saw it and she looked and she said, "Oh, who's that baby? He's so beautiful." And I told her, "That's baby Krishna." And little things like that, to answering questions about the Gita, to answering questions about Diwali. What does Diwali mean? And people still make mistakes. Someone came to me the other day and said, I really think you should go to this event because you're a great example of Buddhists in Congress. I said, no, not Buddhist, but thanks anyway. And I think when you respond to people and you approach people from a place of being comfortable and not ashamed, and really believing in your own spiritual practice, then that is conveyed in a powerful way to them. And if they are sincere, and some people aren't, but if they are sincere, then it's an opportunity to share the greatest gift in the world with them.
So someone in the audience has asked, what words of advice do you have for young people who want to get involved in public service, and especially the young ladies in the audience who want to get involved in public service and perhaps even military?
The first and most important advice that I've received in my life, I'll pass on to you, is to understand what the purpose of your actions and of your life is. If you're motivated by a sense of service to yourself, of selfish ambition, of moving yourself forward, I think you'll find that you won't see the kind of happiness that you achieve if you are truly practicing the principles of karma yoga and putting others before yourself. I thought Murley's personal story that he shared about his decision he made in his life of taking a great job of high esteem and higher pay than he would get working for a nonprofit where he's pounding the pavement and flying all over the place and working really hard, but doing truly meaningful, groundbreaking work that will impact not just your kids, the kids we see here in this room today, but will impact generations to come. That's a perfect example of where that motivation comes from. If you're motivated out of a desire to be of service, then you will understand the true meaning of success in your own life and the true meaning of happiness, no matter what you choose to do, whether it's the military or politics or education or medicine or business or raising a family. Each of these actions can be dovetailed in the service of God and others. And Prime Minister Modi spoke about this in his speech at Madison Square Garden, where each of us has our role and responsibility to fulfill in our own lives. Whether you're a street sweeper, or you're selling tea, or you're selling fruit, or you're taking care of people as a doctor. Each of us doing these jobs to the best of our ability is exactly what we should be doing, not for ourselves, but for others.